I found it curious that this has come out. Our insiders have reported over the last 24 hours that the Maple Leafs first-round pick is officially in play. And
I saw that.
This is a team that they don't give much. They don't leak much. The fact that that's out.
Well, somebody else has leaked it.
Well, somebody else might have leaked it that, yes, the Leafs called them up and said, we're interested in somebody and this could be on the table. You can't control what other messengers are going to be out there.
Is this really news, though, Brian? Every team that is the top 6 teams in the league, what you call it, Winnipeg, Vegas, Toronto, Washington, Tampa, they all have their first-round picks in play if they want to make a deal and get a good player.
Probably. You're right. But I
It'll
think
be a farther down
I think
pick,
with the Leafs and with the timing is what I find a little bit curious. I mean, this might be the first time where the Leafs have snapped out of it, and Dubas in particular. And so we got to get it out here that we're in play. You know, this is out there. Maybe you don't need the insiders and the media to do your bidding for you, but maybe they're looking to pounce a little bit earlier. You know, maybe it is. We're not waiting until the 25th. Maybe we want to get a deal done quickly because you're right. You would assume if the player on the receiving end of the deal is worth it, all the top end teams would hand over their first round pick. Yes. You make that assumption,
right?
But this one's the first one that's out,
right?
You know, right. I haven't heard that Tampa's. I don't even know if Tampa has a first rounder this year. They might not with the deals they've made. But I haven't heard Tampa say all their picks are available. Right. Or Vegas or Calgary or whatever. The Leafs, it's out there. Edmonton was out there.
Right.
And Edmonton's first-round pick happens to be on this trade bait board. But the fact that the Leaf first-round pick is officially in play based on what our insiders are hearing, that's different than what generally comes out of this organization.
Well, you're right.
So
maybe
why
that's
is
the
it out
difference
there?
between Kyle and Lou. Could be something like that.
Could be.
Also, it could be a scenario where Kyle's been working the back channels for weeks now, and it gets leaked on the other end. He was in on player X, player Y, and somebody says, yeah, you know what? I've been talking to the Leafs. Yeah, they're first rounder and player X. So it could come from the other source because there are 2 or 3 teams probably in play. If the Leafs are talking to that, I think it's great. I also believe that the trade deadline, because of the parity in a couple different spots. And near the top, now outside of Tampa, there's some teams like the Leafs included. Why wouldn't you want to improve your team now instead of waiting until into February? And then the second part would be those teams that we've been talking about around the cusp. In the West, it's those 5 teams that we've been pointing Edmonton,
fighting
Vancouver,
to get in.
And then even in the East.
Yes, I think what I will say about the idea of handing over a first-round pick, even if you're one of these top-end teams, which the Leafs are,
right?
I don't like the idea of doing it for a rental player. I think it's got to be someone with more term than just 3 months left on their deal.
I always think that when I see these trades happen, it's the guy at the deadline that the team gets a prospect, a current player on the roster, and a first-round pick. You get punted in the first round, you're like, that was a waste.
Yeah. I don't they're in a window, but it's not the window isn't an inch away from being closed.
Right.
It's not like Pittsburgh where Pittsburgh's like, take everything, we got to get to it right now.
And Jimmy
Crosby's
Rutherford
32.
is said, he goes, I got nothing left.
And this is what we have to do. Malcolm's 33, Sid's 32, Letang's in his 30s. This is it. We're in.
Yeah.
The Leafs are not. They're at the complete other end of their timeline. So, I can't picture the Leafs trading a first-round pick for a guy who's going to walk at the end of the year. But I think what becomes clear is the position they would be seeking out. Mackenzie has said this, and we'll talk to Bob later, that if it's a bigger deal, someone of substance, in other words, someone with term on their deal, it's going to cost a first and likely one of Kapanen and or Janssen, and that's why they would be on this board. But, speak of the devil, we're talking about Gardner here. Gardner likely walks at the end of the year. Regardless of how you feel about him, he's their second or third best defenseman, and he plays a ton of minutes. Ron Hainsey, I think, is done at the end of the year. He's going to retire. I'd be shocked if he came back. If he played, period, let alone here in Toronto. I think he's done. He's your second or third defenseman based on minutes. At the end of the year, we keep talking about the Marner money and the Matthews money. 50% of their top 4 is gone.
Right.
That's a huge hole they got to fill. Mm-hmm. And Dubas, I think it would be wise to say, you know what? Maybe we got to do this at the deadline as opposed to in the summer. Let's bring in if we can, a Petrangelo or a Muzzin or a Parayko.
Somebody who's got a little term on there.
Someone
so
who
some
is
stability
definitely a top 4.
Right.
Because if you're gambling in July, I don't even know if there are any top 4 defensemen available in July. But then it just comes down to money, and other teams can always overpay you if you're in a cap crunch. If it's simply making a trade, yeah, you got to pay, and it wouldn't be. It's not ideal that you're giving up draft picks and guys you've developed and good players. But it probably puts you in a more advantageous position to get the job done via trade than via signing in the summer.